Okay, so have you ever found yourself, wrestling with those really big questions
The fundamental ones.
about the universe? Like, how does it operate? Why is it even here?
Right. And crucially,
And yeah, crucially, where do we fit into that whole picture as conscious beings?
absolutely, it's something many people grapple with.
And then have you maybe wondered if the answers might actually lie? Well, not in choosing between science and spirituality.
Right. Not as an either-or situation.
Exactly. But maybe in seeing them as, I don't know, two deeply intertwined perspectives, like two sides of the very same cosmic coin.
That's a great way to put it.
Well, today we're embarking on a deep dive into a truly ambitious and really thought-provoking work.
hmm
It's Skylar Fiction's Breath of the Cosmos, a Christian Pantheist theory of everything.
And it really is ambitious.
Yeah, this isn't just another book. It's a bold, imaginative attempt to weave together some of the most cutting-edge insights from quantum physics
With profound Christian spirituality.
and critical ecological ethics, too. It's like an intellectual and spiritual adventure all rolled into one.
Indeed. And our mission, really, in this deep dive is to explore exactly how fiction proposes that quantum phenomena.
Yeah.
Those utterly baffling behaviors at the smallest scales of reality.
They're really weird stuff.
The really weird stuff, how they actually point us towards a universe where everything is intimately related in God. We're here to uncover those aha moments, those insights that offer a real shortcut to being well-informed on a topic that bridges the very fabric of physical reality
Yeah.
with deeply meaningful spiritual insight. You might just find your worldview expanded in some really unexpected ways.
I think that's guaranteed. You're going to discover a completely different kind of theory of everything today.
Definitely not the standard physics definition.
No, this one dares to reconcile hard science, not just with mathematical consistency, but with our lived experience.
Yes, and with our spirituality and with urgent ethical considerations. That's key.
We'll explore how this work invites us to treat the cosmos not as some impersonal machine,
Which is often the default view.
right, but as a living, breathing body whose very breath is God. It's a vision that emphasizes dynamic becoming and process.
Over static, fixed existence. That's a core theme.
So get ready to have your mind stretched and your perspectives broadened as we journey through these fascinating ideas. Hashtag tag tag one, why a pantheist theory of everything, bridging science, spirit, and life. So, okay, let's start with the big question. Why exactly does Skylar Fiction propose a pantheist theory of everything? What's the driving force?
Well, her fundamental premise is quite fascinating and I think very timely, as you said earlier.
Right.
For centuries, physics, which primarily investigates how the universe operates, and theology, grappling with the deeper questions of why it exists, its ultimate meaning, they've largely been treated as entirely separate, often even conflicting realms.
Completely siloed off.
Exactly. But Breath of the Cosmos explicitly aims to bridge that profound divide, suggesting they aren't just linked, but can actually inform and enrich each other.
That's a bold move right there.
It is. And her core proposal, tying into that, is that the startling, often counterintuitive behaviors of quantum phenomena, the very foundational nature of reality at its smallest scales, they don't just describe physical mechanisms.
Okay, so what else?
Instead, she argues, they actually suggest an intimate, profound relationship of everything in God.
In God. That's the key phrase.
That's the key. It's a shift from merely understanding the mechanics to perceiving them as direct expressions of a deeper, interconnected, and divinely animated reality. It's about finding the spiritual within the scientific.
And it's important to note, it's not like contemporary physics doesn't have its own theory of everything, right?
Well, yes and no. Many in the scientific community often point to the standard model of particle physics, combined with Einstein's general relativity as our current best understanding.
And it's incredibly successful.
It is, in many ways, an incredibly successful framework.
Yeah.
But, and this is where fiction finds her opening,
Okay.
it acknowledges its own incompleteness.
Right. It doesn't explain everything.
Exactly. For instance, it notoriously fails to unify gravity with quantum mechanics. That's still one of the biggest theoretical challenges in physics.
The Holy Grail, some call it.
Pretty much. But, perhaps even more crucially for fiction's expansive vision, this established scientific model doesn't really address meaning, purpose, or consciousness.
Yeah, it leaves those out.
It describes the how with incredible precision, but leaves the why, the what for, and the who largely outside its purview. It tells us what happens.
But not what it all means.
Precisely.
So for Skylar Fiction, then, a pantheist theory of everything completely redefines what unification even means.
It does. It's not just about finding that one elegant mathematical equation that ties all the forces together.
Though that's still a goal for physics.
A noble scientific pursuit, absolutely. But her vision is far more holistic.
So what does it entail?
For her, a true, comprehensive theory of everything must reconcile science not only with mathematical consistency, but also with our lived human experience.
Our day-to-day reality.
Yes, and with spirituality and with ethics. This isn't about proposing new equations or overturning existing physics.
Okay, that's important.
Very. Rather, it's about interpreting already existing scientific knowledge through a different lens, a relational and participatory metaphysics.
A new way of seeing the data we already have.
Exactly. And she explicitly grounds this in Christian mysticism and panentheism.
Okay, panentheism. Let's clarify that.
Right. Crucially, panentheism views God as being in everything and everything in God.
Yeah.
But God also transcends everything, meaning God is more than just the sum total of the universe.
Got it. So not quite pantheism where God is the universe.
Exactly. That distinction is vital. And it leads to this truly powerful foundational idea at the heart of her work.
Which is?
That the cosmos isn't just a collection of inert particles or some cold, indifferent machine.
Which can feel like the default sometimes.
It can. Instead, she invites us to imagine it as a living body.
Wow.
And its very breath is God. She draws heavily on process philosophy like Whitehead, Hartshorne, and relational ontology.
Okay.
To really emphasize becoming over static being. Reality isn't fixed. It's dynamic, always in flux, always evolving, always participating.
That feels very different, more alive.
Much more alive. And this foundational idea, the cosmos, as a living, breathing, evolving entity infused with the divine, truly underpins all of fiction's core axioms.
Right, the building blocks of her theory.
Yes, she masterfully weaves together ancient biblical motifs, rich theological traditions, and cutting-edge research from quantum physics, biology, philosophy.
It's incredibly interdisciplinary.
Hugely. It seeks to find spiritual resonance and profound meaning within scientific discovery, making the universe not just understandable, but sacred.
And we're about to embark on that journey with you, diving into 7 core quantum concepts that fiction reinterprets as profound spiritual insights.
It's quite a ride.
We'll begin by looking at how uncertainty itself can become a form of sacred surrender. Then move through ideas like creative participation through observation.
Superposition, entanglement.
The fields of possibility in superposition, the fabric of interdependence in entanglement, and even reframe the biblical fall through quantum decoherence.
Which is a fascinating move.
Totally. Before exploring divine reflection and holography and emptiness as the very womb of God.
Each step builds on the last.
Yeah, each step promises to stretch our understanding of reality and our place within it. Okay, let's unpack this first one. Skylar Fiction starts her exploration with, well, one of the most famous and frankly counterintuitive principles in quantum mechanics, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle.
Right. The idea that you can't know certain pairs of properties, like position and momentum, with perfect accuracy at the same time.
But she portrays it not just as this cold mathematical limit on what we can know.
No, not at all.
But as something much deeper, a profound and even beautiful call to spiritual humility.
Exactly. She highlights that at the quantum level, particles do not possess definite values for position and momentum simultaneously. As Heisenberg himself said, the very act of measurement disturbs the system.
So it's inherent.
It's inherent. It's about this fuzziness and undeniable indeterminacy right at the very heart of reality. We simply cannot pin down certain properties with absolute certainty simultaneously.
And fiction takes that scientific indeterminacy. And this is bold. She links it directly to Jesus' teaching in Matthew 6.34.
Do not worry about tomorrow.
Yeah. For her, faith isn't about blind belief in some fixed outcome, but rather, and I love this phrase, accepting probability rather than certainty.
It reframes faith entirely.
It does. This radical idea suggests that uncertainty, far from being just a scientific problem to be solved,
Actually becomes an invitation.
an invitation to surrender our deep-seated need for absolute control, to trust what she beautifully calls the divine flux.
That ever-unfolding, dynamic nature of existence. It's about leaning into the unknown.
Scientifically, the uncertainty principle itself, action 2, it's truly foundational to quantum mechanics. It's not just a side note.
Absolutely not. And the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy clarifies this really well. It isn't about clumsy experimental error or just the limits of our instruments.
It's not like we just need better tools.
No. It's a statement about the inherent nature of the quantum world itself. Particles simply don't have exact simultaneous values for these complementary properties before we measure them. It's a feature of reality, not a bug in our tools.
And this inherent indeterminacy is what leads to the famous measurement problem, right?
Exactly. Which essentially asks, how does a quantum system, existing as this blur of possibilities, what physicists call unitary Schrödinger evolution,
The wave function.
the wave function, yeah, how does it suddenly snap into a single definite reality wave packet collapse the moment we observe it?
Where does the probability become actuality?
Right. This duality, this radical shift, really raises profound questions about where the boundary lies between the system being observed and the observer.
Or the measurement device.
Or the device, yes. And even whether consciousness itself plays some kind of role in that collapse, which is, of course, highly debated.
Definitely. But fiction uses this uncertainty to draw these spiritual parallels.
She does. To deepen this metaphor of surrender, she consults Taoist philosophy, specifically the concept of wu-wei.
Effortless action?
Effortless action or non-doing. A key aspect emphasizes not forcing and aligning with the moment, allowing things to unfold naturally.
Okay, I see the connection.
It parallels the posture invited by quantum uncertainty.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to control every outcome, you learn to trust the unfolding and align with that divine flux.
Don't force it.
Don't force it. She also draws on apophatic theology, often called negative theology.
Saying what God is not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Asserting God is ultimately unknowable, approached by negating attributes rather than defining them. When you combine that with quantum indeterminacy, it suggests that ultimate reality itself, much like God, truly eludes our precise conceptualization. It becomes accessible maybe only through silence, surrender, stepping beyond the limits of language and intellect.
And within Christian mysticism, this idea of surrender to the unknowable is absolutely central, isn't it?
Oh, completely. Think of the Desert Fathers' practice of acequia, that profound contemplative silence, just waiting in stillness to encounter God beyond words.
Or Gregory of Nyssa.
Yes, Gregory of Nyssa's concept of epectasis, this unending journey deeper into what he called divine darkness, perpetually seeking an ultimately unknowable God.
So fiction sees Heisenberg's principle as an invitation to that same kind of journey.
Precisely. Resonating with the Taoist idea to do nothing, or then's beginner's mind. And process philosophy adds another layer.
Whitehead again.
Whitehead, yes. He argued the universe consists of dynamic events, not static substances. Reality is ongoing creativity.
So everything is always becoming.
Always becoming. So, surrendering to uncertainty aligns perfectly with acknowledging our co-creative participation in each dynamic emerging moment.
Okay, so bringing this all together, what does this profound connection between quantum uncertainty and spiritual surrender mean for you, the listener, practically?
Well, this pantheist theory interprets uncertainty not as some kind of weakness or flaw in the cosmos,
As a call.
as a call to live in creative fidelity with this divine flux. We can't predict our future precisely because it's always emerging, always in motion.
It hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't happened yet. Instead, we're invited to actively co-create it with God, moment by moment.
So faith changes here.
It really transforms. Faith becomes a deep trust in a relational process, not just belief without empirical evidence. It radically challenges those deterministic notions of divine sovereignty.
Where everything is already mapped out.
Right, where everything is preordained. Instead, it invites a participatory theology where our human choices genuinely matter and contribute to the unfolding of reality.
That feels much more empowering, in a way.
It can be. And ecologically, this metaphor of surrender also serves as a critique, doesn't it?
How so?
It critiques that dominant Western emphasis on mastery and control over nature.
Ah, right. The idea we can just manage everything.
Exactly. It encourages a much-needed humility in the face of our incredibly uncertain planetary futures, reminding us that we are part of an unfolding, unpredictable, and ultimately sacred system.
Not separate from it.
Not separate masters of it. It's a powerful call to let go of the illusion of absolute control and instead participate reverently within the natural world, rather than attempting to dominate and manipulate it.
Okay, building on that foundation of uncertainty and surrender, fiction then dives into the concept of observation itself.
Yes, and this is where things get even more mind-bending, arguably.
She connects the quantum observer, the act of measurement, directly to the theological notion of God as the ultimate observer. That's a huge conceptual leap.
It is. She cites the physicist John Wheeler, who famously explored the idea that quantum phenomena aren't fully real until they are observed or registered.
The participatory universe idea.
Exactly. And to illustrate this, she points to experiments like the delayed choice quantum eraser.
Ah, yes, those are famously strange.
They really are. They seem to suggest, bizarrely, that our choices of measurement now can appear to influence events that have already happened in the past.
Undermining our sense of linear time.
It certainly challenges our everyday understanding of time and causality. It's deeply counterintuitive.
So what's fiction's interpretation of all this?
Her interpretation is that consciousness, or perhaps more broadly, observation itself, is fundamentally about creative participation.
Meaning
we actually, in a very real sense, co-create reality simply by observing it, by interacting with it.
wow. And she roots this theologically.
Deeply. She roots it in Genesis 1, where God's word, God's observation, in a sense, literally brings the world into being. Let there be light.
And there was light.
And there was light.
Oh.
And then she extends this to our imago Dei, our being made in God's image.
So we share that power.
In a way, yes. It means we share in this co-creative power through our very acts of perception, attention, and measurement.
That's a heavy responsibility.
It is. Scientifically, the measurement problem we mentioned earlier is central here again.
The collapse of the wave function.
Right. Quantum systems exist in these fuzzy superpositions, these clouds of potentiality, and they appear to collapse to definite outcomes only upon measurement or interaction.
And Wheeler's delayed choice experiments really pushed this idea.
They did. They were designed to close loopholes in previous tests. And they show pretty compellingly that whether a photon behaves like a wave or a particle depends on how we choose to measure it.
After it's already gone through the slits.
After it's already passed through the double slits, the experiment delays the choice of measurement setup until just before detection.
That's incredible.
It demonstrates that what we do at the exit port seems to determine whether interference wave behavior is observed, even for photons that passed the slits long before our choice was made. It implies the past isn't entirely fixed until it interacts with the present choice of observation.
It really suggests reality isn't just a static stage out there waiting for us to passively record it.
Exactly. It seems profoundly participatory almost, waiting for us to engage with it, to become definite.
Now, you mentioned a clarification earlier about the observer effect.
Yes, it's crucial. In physics, the observer effect often refers more broadly to the disturbance of a system by the measurement apparatus itself, the physical interaction.
So, not necessarily a conscious mind.
Not necessarily a conscious human observer, as sources like MDPI clarify. So it's the interaction causing the collapse, not necessarily direct mental influence alone in the standard view. That's important to keep straight.
Right. Yet some interpretations do seem to emphasize the observer in a more, well, philosophical way, don't they?
They do. Think of cubism, quantum Bayesianism. It views quantum states not as objective properties of reality, as an agent's degrees of belief or expectations about future experiences. In this view, probabilities aren't inherent facts about the world, but represent our own expectations about interacting with it.
So it's about the observer's knowledge.
In a sense, yes. Similarly, relational quantum mechanics argues that states and properties of quantum systems aren't absolute, but are always relative to the observing system.
Everything is relational.
Exactly. Both of these interpretations, while different, highlight the deeply participatory nature of knowledge. Observers aren't just passive recorders. We are active participants in the construction of reality, or at least our knowledge of it. We're not just watching the universe, we're actively involved in its becoming.
Philosophically and theologically, this really clicks with the biblical concept of the logos, the divine word.
Absolutely. Genesis 1, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God's word is performative. It brings things into being.
And in Christian theology, this logos.
The performative word became flesh in Christ. It's a central tenet.
So if we're made in God's image, then perhaps our own speech, our attention, our perception also participate in these creative acts. Fiction sees the observer effect as a scientific metaphor for this theological insight.
How so?
When we observe the world with loving, mindful attention, we help actualize its best possibilities. She draws on the Gospels, where Jesus heals often by truly seeing persons whom society had neglected or deemed invisible.
His compassionate gaze helps restore their wholeness.
That's the idea. What we choose to attend to with love and intention becomes more fully real, both for us and potentially for the world around us. Our focus has power.
Process philosophy seems to really underscore this too.
It absolutely does. Whitehead argued that prehensions are the basic units of reality. Each actual occasion, a momentary event of experience, grabs or prehends data from its environment.
Creates something new and contributes to a new actual occasion. Charles Hartshorne describes prehension as this one-way dependence, where a subject's experience depends on other entities. It's a profoundly relational view of existence at its core.
So every observation is a creative act.
In this view, yes. Every act of observation, every prehension, is a creative act, bringing new actualities into being. This relational ontology deeply resonates with the Christian metaphysics that emphasizes God's immanence in all events.
God present in the process.
Yes, and the co-creative role of creatures, including us, in the ongoing creation of the world. Our focused attention isn't just passive, it's generative.
So, okay, let's bring it back to the listener. Observation as creative participation. This has profound ethical and ecological implications for you, right?
Absolutely. It suggests that the quality of our observation, the way we attend to the world, truly matters in shaping it.
How we look changes what we see, and maybe what is.
In a sense, to observe with love, reverence, and curiosity tends to foster life and wholeness, whereas observing with domination, exploitation, or detachment often fosters fragmentation and harm.
That makes sense intuitively.
This principle can ground participatory democracy, valuing pluralism over a single, supposedly objective viewpoint. It profoundly impacts interfaith dialogue, too.
And in fiction's pantheist theory,
God is the ultimate observer whose loving gaze sustains the cosmos, and humans, along with other creatures, participate in this ongoing creation through their attention and interaction. Our scientific instruments, then.
our telescopes, our microscopes.
We become extensions of our senses, expanding the scope of our sacred participation.
That really does sound mind-bending. So if the act of measurement fundamentally entangles us with what we measure, what does that mean for how we approach knowledge itself?
That's a crucial question she raises.
Does it imply that humility and ethical responsibility must always accompany the quest for knowledge, reminding us that we are fundamentally part of what we observe rather than purely objective outsiders?
I think that's exactly the implication fiction draws. We're never truly separate.
Okay, next up, fiction takes on another quantum marvel, superposition. And she uses this as a powerful metaphor, doesn't she?
She does, for two key things: the dynamic nature of human identity and the boundless presence of the divine.
Let's start with the science bit. Superposition. Remind us.
Right. It's that utterly mind-bending state where a quantum particle, like an electron, exists in multiple potential states simultaneously.
All possibilities at once.
Exactly. It's like Schrödinger's famous cat, theoretically both alive and dead until the box is opened and a measurement forces it into one state or the other. It's a field of pure possibility before that moment.
And fiction sees this as a symbol. How?
As a symbol of our own human multiplicity. The idea that we aren't fixed, singular, predetermined entities.
Like billiard balls with set paths?
No, but rather, we're dynamic fields of possible selves that only collapse into actuality through our choices, our experiences, our interactions.
That's a very different view of identity.
It is. And she links this directly to the imago Dei, the idea of being created in God's image.
How does that connect?
It suggests that we mirror God's own boundless potential and creative capacity. Our multiplicity reflects God's infinite possibility.
And God's presence in this.
In this framework, God is understood as immanent in all possibilities, present within that vast, unmanifested potential that underlies reality.
Not just in what actually happens.
Exactly. Not confined to any single actualization or predetermined outcome. The divine is the ground of all that could be, not just all that is.
Scientifically, superposition isn't just a weird theoretical idea, is it? It has real applications.
Oh, absolutely. It's a foundational concept for technologies like quantum computing, which harnesses superposition to perform calculations impossible for classical computers.
Right. Qubits can be 0 and 1 at the same time.
Essentially, yes. And perhaps even more surprisingly, it plays a crucial role in something as fundamental to life as photosynthesis.
Photosynthesis. How?
Researchers have found compelling evidence that quantum superposition helps excitons, which are basically packets of energy carrying light energy.
Okay.
It helps them explore multiple energy pathways simultaneously within the complex molecular structures of photosynthetic organisms, like plants and bacteria.
Like trying all roads at once to find the quickest.
That's a great analogy. It allows the energy to be transferred with near 100% efficiency to the reaction center, where it's converted to chemical energy. Studies from around 2007 really highlighted this.
So quantum mechanics is happening in leaves right now.
It seems so. Photosynthesis is, in part, a quantum mechanical effect. This quantum coherence allows excitons to sample all possible paths and choose the most efficient one almost instantly.
And this is happening in warm, wet, messy cells.
Yes, which is remarkable.
Yeah.
It shows that these quantum effects aren't just confined to highly controlled, cold, isolated labs. Life itself seems to utilize them.
Beyond physics and biology, you mentioned a parallel in psychology.
Yes, fascinatingly, there's possible selves theory.
Okay, what's that?
It posits that individuals hold multiple future-oriented self-representations. Who we hope to become, who we expect to become, maybe even who we fear becoming.
Our potential futures.
Exactly. And these possible selves aren't just idle daydreams. They actively motivate our behavior, shape our goals, influence our choices now.
I can see the connection to superposition.
Right. Fiction's metaphor resonates beautifully. We, too, seem to live in the superposition of possible selves until our decisions and experiences collapse us into one particular trajectory or identity, but at least for a while.
It really underscores that identity isn't static.
It's fluid and dynamic, comprising many potential narratives and manifestations, constantly being negotiated.
Philosophically, this idea of a fluid emerging identity fits perfectly with process philosophy again, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Whitehead explicitly rejected what he called substance metaphysics, the view of beings as fixed, static entities that just undergo change externally.
Like a rock getting weathered.
Right. Instead, he insisted reality consists of an assembly of physical, organic, social, and cognitive processes. Persistence, or identity over time, isn't an intrinsic, unchanging property of some fixed thing.
It's more like a pattern.
It's the dynamic, regular behavior of constantly evolving organizations or patterns of events. Each moment integrates multiple possibilities into a new actuality.
This strongly supports fiction's claim that we are fields of potential rather than immutable substances.
It really does. Our identity emerges through a series of events, constantly becoming. Theologically, think about Imago Dei again.
Being made in God's image.
While it's often been interpreted narrowly as, say, human rationality or our capacity for dominion.
Traditional views.
Right. Process theologians like Moltmann argue God's image is more profoundly reflected in our capacity for relationality and creativity. We mirror the triune God through dynamic relationships.
And fiction expands on this.
She expands this, claiming our inherent multiplicity, our field of possibilities, mirrors God's own infinite possibilities. Superposition becomes this powerful metaphor for divine immanence.
God dwelling within all potentialities.
Yes, dwelling within them and calling them forth into being, perpetually creating through possibility.
This also seems to resonate with something like the Eastern Orthodox concept of theosis.
That's a great connection. Theosis is the process of becoming like God or participating in the divine life, often described as participating in God's divine energies, even if God's essence remains incomprehensible.
So our creativity connects us.
If God's energies permeate creation, then every act of creativity, every mindful choice, every expression of love is a participation in that ongoing divine life and its boundless potential.
So what's the ethical takeaway here? How does this view of superposition and potentiality affect how we should live?
Well, this axiom becomes a powerful ethical call to honor each person's multiplicity and inherent potential.
To see beyond labels.
Exactly. Social labels that reduce individuals to one fixed identity, whether it's based on race, profession, past mistakes, whatever, fail to appreciate the superposed richness of their being, the infinite possibilities within them.
So policies and institutions should.
They should aim to foster environments where diverse possibilities can actually flourish. Education shouldn't just be training for predetermined roles.
Right, exploring potential.
Exploring potentialities, nurturing creativity, opening doors rather than closing them.
And what about spiritual practices?
Things like meditation, contemplative prayer, even artistic expression can be seen as ways of tuning into these deeper potentialities within ourselves and the cosmos, connecting us to that wellspring of unmanifested possibility.
Becoming aware of the choices we're making.
Precisely. By recognizing that each choice we make effectively collapses a field of possibilities, we become more mindful of our actions' profound consequences. This challenges fixed identities, opens space for fluidity, growth, and inclusion. It's about embracing the potential within and between us.
Okay, moving on from the fields of possibility in superposition, fiction dedicates a lot of attention to quantum entanglement.
Yes, and she sees it as the very basis for what philosophers call a relational ontology.
Meaning reality is fundamentally about
Relationships, Connections, particularly connections that defy our ordinary classical understanding of space and separation.
Right. Remind us of the basics of entanglement.
Well, she explains that entangled particles, once they've interacted in a certain way, remain correlated no matter how far apart they get.
The spooky action at a distance Einstein famously disliked.
That's the one. What happens to one particle instantaneously affects the state of the other, even if they're light years apart. Measuring the spin of one, for example, instantly determines the spin of the other.
And this isn't just theory anymore, is it?
Not at all. She notes the 2015 loophole-free Bell test, which was a landmark experiment. It unequivocally confirmed this entanglement beyond any classical explanation.
Proving the spookiness is real.
Proving the spookiness is a real, fundamental property of our universe. The correlations are too strong to be explained by hidden information carried by the particles locally.
So fiction interprets this profound scientific phenomenon. How, theologically?
As a scientific metaphor for Christian relational metaphysics, the idea that individuals aren't isolated, self-sufficient substances.
Like little islands.
No.
Right.
But are fundamentally constituted by their relationships.
Right.
We are who we are because of our connections.
And she links this to Scripture.
Directly. It echoes Jesus' powerful statement in John 14:20. I'm in my Father, and you are in me, and I in you. It's an idea of profound intrinsic belonging and mutual indwelling.
Scientifically, entanglement is really one of the most non-classical features of quantum mechanics, isn't it? It forces us to rethink basic assumptions.
Absolutely. When two or more particles become entangled, their fates are inextricably linked. You literally cannot describe the state of one particle independently of the others. They form a single unified system, even when separated.
And that 2015 Bell test was crucial.
Hugely crucial. Conducted by NIST researchers and others, it rigorously closed major loopholes that had lingered in previous tests.
Like particles being missed or subtle communication.
Exactly, the detection loophole and the locality loophole. By using entangled photons and truly random measurement settings separated by space-like distances, they strongly confirmed that no local realistic model can reproduce quantum correlations.
Local realistic. Break that down.
It means we have to abandon either locality, the idea that distant objects can't influence each other instantaneously, or realism, the idea that physical properties exist definitely and independently of whether we measure them.
That's a heck of a choice.
It is. A choice between two profoundly unsettling ideas for classical physics. It fundamentally redefines our understanding of connection, almost as if the universe is woven from these invisible, non-local threads.
And you mentioned earlier, entanglement isn't just in physics labs.
That's right, which is fascinating. We discussed the evidence in photosynthesis.
Right, in light harvesting complexes.
Yes. Research at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab showed quantum entanglement can persist in these complexes at the normal temperatures of living organisms.
Enabling super-efficient energy transfer.
Exactly. It was observed across an entire light harvesting complex, demonstrating that this non-equilibrium, multipartite entanglement can exist for relatively long times, even in the chaotic environment of a living cell.
It makes you wonder where else it might be playing a role.
It certainly does, which leads to more controversial ideas, like the ORCH or R theory in neuroscience.
Orchestrated objective reduction. Penrose and Hameroff.
Yes. They posit that consciousness itself might arise from quantum processes, including entanglement within the microtubules inside our neurons.
Forming quantum bits or qubits in the brain.
That's the suggestion, that these entangled states collapse via an objective threshold related to space-time geometry, producing moments of conscious experience. Now, it's highly debated, not widely accepted in mainstream neuroscience.
Sure.
But it exemplifies the ongoing search for entanglement's role beyond pure physics, hinting at potentially deeper, interconnected levels of reality that might underpin even consciousness itself.
Philosophically and theologically, this idea of reality being fundamentally relational has very deep roots, doesn't it?
Oh, very deep. Process philosophers like Whitehead and Hartshorne explicitly argue that relations are more fundamental than static substances.
Things are defined by their connections.
Yes. Hartshorne defines prehension as that one-way dependence, where a subject's experience intrinsically depends on other entities. He emphasizes that this prehensive relation is the most concrete form of relatedness, implying a universe built on dynamic interactions, not isolated bits.
It rejects the idea of self-sufficient individuals.
Completely. It proposes that reality is fundamentally a dynamic web of interdependencies. And in Christian thought, relationality is absolutely central to the doctrine of the Trinity.
3 persons, 1 God.
3 persons in one essence, defined by their mutual relations of love. Augustine famously described the Trinity as lover, beloved, and the love between them.
And theologian Catherine Keller links this to entanglement.
She does. She argues entanglement provides a powerful scientific metaphor for perichoresis, the mutual indwelling or interpenetration of the persons of the Trinity, where each exists within and through the others in this dynamic dance of communion.
Fiction draws on that.
She draws directly on John 14:1, I am in the Father, and this perichoretic notion to emphasize that individuals truly exist in one another, not just alongside each other as separate entities.
Which resonates with other traditions, too.
Absolutely. It aligns beautifully with feminist philosophies emphasizing connection, indigenous worldviews centered on kinship, and ecological perspectives highlighting the web of life over atomistic individualism.
So the ethical implications of entanglement are massive.
Huge. If entanglement implies no being exists in isolation, then we are all profoundly interconnected.
Then harming another is harming ourselves.
In a very real, albeit perhaps subtle sense, yes. Ethically, this directly challenges rampant individualism and strongly supports communal and ecological responsibility. Justice becomes about restoring relations, healing the web.
This underpins the biblical command to love your neighbor, and even your enemy.
It does, and it resonates incredibly strongly with powerful Eastern concepts like Indra's net in Buddhism, the image of a vast net where at each node hangs a jewel that reflects all the other jewels.
A hole in every part.
Exactly. And also the African concept of Ubuntu, often translated as I am because we are. These aren't just poetic sentiments, fiction suggests. They're profound reflections of the universe's fundamentally entangled nature.
Practically, what does this mean for us?
Practically, it means policies and technologies must account for these non-local impacts, these ripple effects. Climate change mitigation, for instance, simply cannot be effectively pursued by isolated nations or individuals acting alone.
Our entangled global reality demands collective action.
It absolutely requires collective, coordinated action. Understanding the cosmos as an entangled whole fosters a spirituality of compassion and solidarity that feels desperately needed in our fractured world today.
Okay, this next one is where fiction makes a truly profound and, frankly, incredibly imaginative reinterpretation.
Yes, this is a very bold move, theologically and scientifically.
She takes the biblical story of the fall, Adam and Eve, the garden, the tree of knowledge, and courageously reframes it through the lens of quantum decoherence.
It's a way of reading an ancient spiritual narrative through the concepts of modern physics.
So how does she connect them?
Well, she compares the tree of knowledge of good and evil not to a simple moral choice leading to guilt,
but to something else.
To an environmental interaction that causes a quantum system, in this case, humanity in its primordial state of unity with God, to lose its inherent coherence, its quantum unity.
So the choice was an interaction.
In her telling, Adam and Eve's choice or interaction entangled them more deeply with their immediate separated environment, leading to decoherence and the appearance of separation from God and from each other.
The loss of that unified quantum state.
Exactly. She draws on Wojciech Zurich's well-established theory of environment-induced decoherence.
Which explains how classical reality emerges.
Precisely. It explains how the quantum world transitions to the classical world we experience. Essentially, quantum systems inevitably become entangled with their surroundings, stray photons, air molecules, etc.
The environment observes the system.
In a sense, yes. And this interaction effectively averages out or suppresses the weird quantum superposition effects, making the system look classical and definite to us.
So the fall is like the wave function collapsing into separation.
That's the metaphor. And then, she continues, the incarnation God becoming human in Christ and Christ's resurrection are seen as a radical act of recoherence.
Restoring the connection.
Restoring that original fundamental entanglement with God and the unified field of creation. Overcoming the apparent separation caused by decoherence, the fall.
Scientifically, decoherence is the primary explanation for the quantum to classical transition, right?
It is. The Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy states that quantum interference, that hallmark of superposition, where possibilities interfere with each other, is rapidly suppressed when a system interacts with its environment. This phenomenon is decoherence.
And Zurich's work was key here.
Yes, Zurich and others show that these environmental interactions naturally lead to certain states called pointer states that are particularly stable under decoherence. The environment effectively selects a preferred basis, a process called unselection.
Which explains why we see definite outcomes.
It explains why we don't typically see macroscopic objects like cats in superpositions of being both dead and alive in our everyday reality. The interaction with the environment forces a choice, so to speak.
So decoherence explains why we don't see superpositions macroscopically.
Right, why things look classical.
But does it fully solve the measurement problem itself? Like, which specific outcome gets chosen?
That's a subtle but important point. Decoherence describes the process by which a quantum system loses its quantum weirdness and starts to look classical due to environmental entanglement. It explains the transition. But it doesn't by itself explain the final, definitive selection of one particular outcome from the remaining possibilities. That's still part of the deeper measurement problem debate.
Got it. But it's widely accepted as the mechanism for classicality emerging.
Absolutely. It's a cornerstone of modern quantum understanding, and it plays a role in biology, too.
How so?
Well, while we discussed entanglement persisting in photosynthesis, decoherence is also happening. It limits how long that quantum coherence can last. There's a delicate interplay.
A balance between coherence and decoherence.
Exactly. Which might actually be crucial for biological function. In cognitive neuroscience, decoherence is often seen as a major hurdle for quantum theories of consciousness, like ORCH or R.
Because the brain is noisy?
The argument is that the brain's warm, wet, and incredibly complex environment would cause quantum states to decohere almost instantly, far too quickly, critics say, for them to influence cognition over meaningful timescales. Though research and debate definitely continue in that fascinating area.
Okay, back to the theological side. Fiction's reinterpretation of the fall as decoherence. How does that fit with traditional theology?
Well, it resonates surprisingly deeply with certain strands, particularly Eastern Orthodox and process theology perspectives on the fall.
Which see it less as a one-off event.
Right. These traditions often view the fall not as a single historical event committed by two individuals, but as an ongoing, lived state of alienation, a fundamental rupture in communion, rather than merely a moral transgression punished by God.
So sin is separation.
Sin is separation, alienation. Decoherence, in fiction's metaphorical reading, symbolizes this loss of our immediate awareness of unity, of God's omnipresent presence, Adam and Eve hiding from God in the garden.
Parallels a quantum system losing its coherent entanglement.
Exactly. Creating that appearance of separation, even if the underlying connection remains, the knowledge of good and evil, then becomes the collapse into dualistic perception, seeing things as separate, fragmented, often in opposition, rather than intrinsically interconnected.
Are there parallels in other mystical traditions?
Yes, she finds support in Kabbalistic notions. For example, Tzimtzum,
God's contraction to make space.
God's self-contraction or withdrawal to make space for creation, creating a kind of primordial void or separation. And also Shevarat HaKalim, the shattering of the vessels that held the divine light, scattering sparks throughout creation.
And humanity's task is repair.
Tikkun Olam, the repairing of the world by gathering these scattered divine sparks, restoring unity. This metaphysical story can be beautifully mapped onto the decoherence metaphor. Creation involves multiplicity and apparent separation, but through mindfulness, compassion, spiritual practice, we strive to re-entangle, to recohere with the divine unity.
And in Christian theology, Christ is the restorer.
Christ is often seen as the new Adam who restores that broken unity. Fiction interprets the incarnation as the ultimate reintroduction of coherence.
Oh.
Jesus fully participates in the decohered quantum field of humanity being truly human, while simultaneously remaining perfectly entangled with God being truly divine. He bridges the apparent gap.
And the resurrection.
The resurrection becomes not just a miraculous resuscitation, but the ultimate act of recoherence for all creation. It overcomes the apparent finality of death and separation, revealing the indestructible underlying unity of existence in God.
So bringing this complex idea home for the listener, what does reframing the fall as decoherence mean practically?
It fundamentally reframes sin not primarily as guilt needing punishment, but as alienation and separation meeting healing and reconciliation.
And it emphasizes that the separation is, in a sense, illusory.
Yes, that the underlying quantum reality, the deeper spiritual reality, remains interconnected, even if our everyday perception collapses it into dualism and fragmentation due to interaction and lack of awareness.
So repentance changes too.
Repentance becomes less about beating yourself up over guilt and more about a conscious process of recoherence, a spiritual attuning to the divine field by aligning our thoughts, actions, and intentions with love, compassion, and surrender.
It fosters compassion, not judgment.
Exactly. It shifts the focus from individual guilt to collective healing and reconciliation. Ecologically, environmental destruction becomes a stark example of decoherence. a tragic loss of harmony between human society and the Earth's systems.
How addressing climate change requires recoherence.
It requires a conscious act of recohering with ecosystems, recognizing our profound interdependence, moving from separation to participation.
And this interpretation could bridge divides.
It really invites profound interfaith dialogue. Similar metaphors of a fall from unity and a path of return, like Buddhism's concepts of ignorance, avidya, and awakening, bodhi, exist in many traditions. By grounding these ancient narratives metaphorically in quantum phenomena, fiction offers a potentially powerful shared language of unity.
A common ground.
A common ground for understanding our shared human experience of brokenness and the universal longing for wholeness and connection.
All right, next up is the holographic principle. This is another concept from the frontiers of physics that fiction uses in a really powerful way.
Yes, she introduces it as a compelling metaphor for divine reflection, offering yet another angle on our interconnected reality.
A core idea being.
The core idea is mind-bending, that somehow each part of reality contains the information of the whole. It's akin to a hologram.
Where every tiny piece holds the entire picture.
Exactly. If you break a holographic plate, each fragment, when illuminated correctly, can still reconstruct the entire original three-dimensional image, just maybe with less resolution or clarity.
And this idea comes from physics.
It does. It's inspired by the groundbreaking theoretical work of physicists like Gerard Hooft and Leonard Susskind, particularly stemming from their work on black hole thermodynamics and string theory.
Black holes have holograms.
In a manner of speaking. The math suggests the information about what falls into a black hole might be encoded on its two-dimensional event horizon, not lost inside the three-dimensional volume.
Wow. Okay, so how does fiction connect this to spirituality?
She connects this profound scientific concept to ancient spiritual teachings, like the saying in the Gospel of Thomas, "Split a piece of wood, I am there. Lift up the stone, and you will find me there." And also Luke 17:21, which states, "The kingdom of God is within you," or sometimes translated among you.
So the divine is encoded everywhere.
That's her interpretation. The potentially holographic nature of the universe reveals that God, the ultimate reality, is somehow encoded and reflected in every single part of creation, however small or seemingly insignificant. The whole is in the part.
Scientifically, let's dig into the holographic principle a bit more. It posits what exactly?
It posits that all the physics, all the information needed to describe a volume of space can actually be encoded on its lower dimensional boundary.
Like a 3D reality described on a 2D surface.
That's the essence of it. Wikipedia summarizes it well. A description of a volume encoded on a lower dimensional boundary, like a gravitational horizon. It's like imagining a 3D movie being entirely described by the information stored on the 2D film reel.
And this came from Hooft and Susskind.
Hooft first proposed the general idea in 1993, and then Susskind, along with others, gave it a precise string-theoretic interpretation. Susskind famously wrote that the three-dimensional world of ordinary experience is a hologram, an image of reality coded on a distant two-dimensional surface.
What inspired this radical idea?
It was originally inspired by the Bekenstein bound, derived from black hole thermodynamics. This bound states that the maximum entropy, which is related to information content of any region of space, is proportional to its surface area, not its volume.
That defies intuition. Usually more volume means more stuff, more information.
Exactly. It's deeply counterintuitive from a classical perspective. The fact that information seems to scale with area suggests that perhaps the fundamental degrees of freedom live on the boundary.
And black holes fit this.
Perfectly. The entropy of a black hole scales precisely with the area of its event horizon. The most famous concrete realization of the principle is the ADS-CFT correspondence in string theory.
Okay, that sounds complicated.
It is. But basically it shows a mathematical duality and equivalence between a theory of gravity, like string theory, and a specific kind of higher dimensional space-time, anti-de Sitter space, or ADS, and a quantum field theory, conformal field theory, or CFT, living on its lower dimensional boundary. They are two different mathematical descriptions of the same underlying reality.
Even though our universe isn't exactly ADS.
Right. Even so, the holographic principle has profoundly influenced many areas of theoretical physics and quantum gravity. It suggests a deep, potentially informational substructure to reality itself.
Philosophically and theologically, this idea of the whole and the part, it echoes everywhere, doesn't it?
It resonates incredibly deeply with mystical traditions across the globe that have long seen the microcosm reflecting the macrocosm.
Like as above, so below?
Exactly, the Hermetic axiom, or the Gospel of Thomas saying, "The kingdom is inside of you, and it is outside of you." In Kabbalah, the concept of Adam Kadmon, the primordial cosmic human, depicts the whole of creation as a reflection of the divine structure, a blueprint of the universe contained within a single archetypal form.
Fiction explicitly links holography to these ancient insights.
She does, suggesting that each person, each living creature, each atom, perhaps, contains a reflection of the whole cosmos and, ultimately, of God.
Process philosophy could interpret this too.
Yes, it can interpret holography as another beautiful example of fundamental relationality. The boundary and the interior aren't truly separate entities, but mutually encode each other, constantly exchanging information, blurring the usual sharp distinctions between subject and object, inside and outside.
This strongly supports pantheism, or rather panentheism again.
Exactly. It affirms God's immanence throughout creation in a radical way. If every boundary, every point somehow contains the information of the whole, then God's presence permeates every single part, every moment.
It challenges any idea of God being absent.
Completely. It supports pantheism, God is all, but even more strongly panentheism, the world is in God, but God is also more than the world. God transcends the holographic projection while being immanent within it.
So, spiritually, what does this holographic view encourage?
In this pantheist theory, the holographic principle encourages a spirituality of mirror-like awareness.
Seeing the reflection.
Seeing ourselves as microcosms of the cosmos, recognizing the infinite potential and the divine spark reflected within our finite everyday experience. Seeing the sacred in the mundane.
This fosters both humility, recognizing we're part of a larger whole,
and responsibility. Because if the whole is reflected in the part, then harming oneself or any part of creation literally harms the whole reflection.
It inspires certain practices.
Yes, artistic and ritual practices that consciously reflect the cosmos within the human body or community. Think of the chakra systems in yoga, mapping cosmic energies onto the body, or the symbolic elements and movements of Christian liturgy, connecting the inner human experience to the grand narrative of salvation history and cosmic reality.
Ethically, what's the impact?
Ethically, it promotes profound solidarity across all differences. If each being is seen as a unique locus of divine reflection, holding the sacred imprint of the whole, then categories that divide us seem less absolute.
And ecologically.
This metaphor directly underpins ecological ethics. The health of a single forest, a river, or even the global climate reflects the health of the entire interconnected system, because each part is encoded with the information, the pattern of the whole. You can't isolate the problems.
It might even have implications for things like consciousness and memory.
Potentially, yes. Some speculative ideas suggest that perhaps our memories aren't stored like files in specific locations in the brain,
But holographically.
but might be encoded holographically, distributed across neural networks throughout the brain and perhaps even the body. It's speculative, but fits the principle.
All right, we're nearing the end of fiction's core axioms. She brings her incredible journey to a close by interpreting the quantum vacuum.
Yes, that seemingly empty space that permeates everything.
And her interpretation is, well, it's stunning. She sees it as nothing less than the very womb of God.
It's a radical reimagining of nothingness, moving it from a negative concept to a profoundly positive and generative one.
So she describes the quantum vacuum as
the fertile dynamic ground from which particles and perhaps even entire universes constantly arise.
the source of everything.
The source. And she links this powerful image directly to the biblical motif in Genesis 1.2, God's spirit hovering over the face of the waters, over the tohu wabohu, the formless void, before anything solid or formed was present.
An emptiness brimming with potential.
Exactly. And to show this vacuum isn't just empty nothingness in the scientific sense either, she references the Casimir effect.
Right, which demonstrates
It demonstrates that even what we perceive as a void actually teems with unseen quantum fluctuations, a bustling, energetic activity happening constantly beneath the surface of reality.
So fiction sees the vacuum as this profound paradox.
Both ultimate emptiness, in the sense of lacking things, and infinite plenitude, in the sense of containing all potential. It's a dynamic field of potentialities that births everything we see and experience.
The silent, fertile ground of all becoming.
Beautifully put. Scientifically, the Casimir effect is truly fascinating. It's a real physical force.
Measurable.
Measurable, yes. It acts on macroscopic boundaries placed within a confined space, and it's caused precisely by those inherent quantum fluctuations of fields like the electromagnetic field, even in what we think of as empty space.
How does it work? Simply.
Well, the presence of boundaries, like two uncharged conductive plates placed incredibly close together in a vacuum, actually alters the allowed modes, the possible fluctuations of the quantum fields between the plates compared to outside them.
Changing the energy of empty space itself.
Exactly. This difference in the vacuum energy density inside versus outside creates a net pressure, pushing the plates together a measurable attractive force.
And this was predicted and measured.
Predicted by Hendrik Casimir back in 1948, and then quantitatively measured to within about 5% of the theoretical predictions in 1997 by Lemereau. It's solid physics.
And it profoundly demonstrates
That the vacuum is not empty. It is, in fact, filled with what's called zero-point energy. The lowest possible energy state of any quantum field is not zero.
it's this constant state of writhing flux.
That's a great description from a Templeton Foundation article, yes. Particles are constantly fleetingly appearing and vanishing from this underlying field. Even empty space is a real physical thing with measurable properties and dynamic activity.
And these vacuum energy ideas have huge implications for cosmology, don't they? This isn't just tiny particle stuff.
Oh, the implications are massive, potentially universe-shaping. Dark energy, for instance.
The mysterious force accelerating the universe's expansion.
Exactly. It might be related to this fundamental vacuum energy. Now, there's still a huge famous discrepancy, like 120 orders of magnitude,
Yeah.
between the simple theoretical calculation of vacuum energy and the observed value of dark energy.
The cosmological constant problem.
The worst prediction in physics, yes, but the connection is strongly suspected. Some theories, like inflationary cosmology, even propose that our entire universe, or perhaps multiple universes, could spontaneously appear from vacuum fluctuations via quantum tunneling.
Universes from nothing, or rather from this nothing that's actually something.
Precisely. So the vacuum is truly generative. It's not merely a passive backdrop, but potentially the ultimate source of phenomena at both the quantum and cosmological scales, constantly giving birth to existence.
Philosophically and theologically, this idea of emptiness as generativity, it echoes everywhere, as you said before.
Across countless mystical traditions. In Taoism, the Tao Te Ching describes the Tao, the way, as the nameless and empty mother of all things, the origin point before existence.
And in Buddhism.
Buddhist philosophy speaks of shunyata, usually translated as emptiness. But it's crucial to understand it's not nihilism, not a belief in nothingness.
It's more like
Openness, potentiality, the lack of inherent independent existence. It's this very openness that allows all phenomena to arise, to exist in their interdependent, transient way.
Christian mystics, too.
Yes, they often speak of God in apophatic terms, as a transcendent nothingness, a dark night from which everything comes. Pseudo-Dionysius, a hugely influential figure, calls God the one beyond being, emphasizing the via negativa, the path of negation. We approach understanding God not by saying what God is, but by recognizing what God is not, embracing the ultimate divine mystery beyond concepts.
Fiction draws on all these rich traditions.
She does, to interpret the quantum vacuum as the womb of God. The vacuum's constant energetic fluctuations correspond to God's dynamic creative energy, while its apparent emptiness reflects the divine apophatic mystery, the God who is beyond all definition, yet intimately present as the source of all.
And the Casimir effect's dependence on boundaries.
That adds another layer. The force arises because of the boundaries, suggesting creation emerges through relational tension, through differentiation within the plenum.
Like God making space.
Analogously, perhaps God's creative act involves kenosis, a self-emptying or self-limitation, as described metaphorically in Philippians 2, or the Kabbalistic symptom, God withdrawing or contracting to make space for creation. This establishes a dynamic, fertile tension, a potential difference that births the cosmos.
So emptiness isn't a void to be feared.
But a compassionate, endlessly generative womb, constantly giving birth to everything new.
So the spiritual practice invited by this.
The vacuum as womb invites a spirituality of emptiness and profound hospitality. A call to consciously make space.
In our lives.
In our busy schedules, yes. In our communities, making room for the other, the stranger. In our economic systems, ensuring there's space for everyone to thrive, not just maximizing efficiency. Making space for new life to arise, for the unexpected to flourish, for the marginalized to find room.
Practices like silence and Sabbath fit here.
Beautifully. Silence, fasting, Sabbath rest. They align powerfully with the quantum vacuum metaphor. They intentionally empty our habitual patterns, our constant noise, our preconceived notions, our busyness.
Creating an opening.
Creating an opening, a fertile ground for divine creativity, for insight, for rest and renewal to flow through us and into the world.
Ecologically, what does this suggest?
Ecologically, this principle encourages preserving wilderness and biodiversity, quite literally leaving space empty of human domination for other creatures and ecosystems to flourish in their own right, recognizing their intrinsic value beyond our utility.
Then politically.
Politically, it suggests that truly just institutions are those that consciously create room for marginalized voices to be heard, to contribute their unique perspectives, and to participate fully in shaping the collective future.
Theologically, it offers comfort, perhaps?
It invites a deep trust that even God's apparent absence, those experiences many mystics call the dark night of the soul, times of dryness or unknowing,
Might actually be fertile ground.
might actually be the fertile ground of transformation. The vacuum, in this light, is not scary nothingness, but the compassionate, ever-generative womb from which everything emerges, including our own spiritual growth and the constant renewal of creation.
Okay, so we've journeyed through these 7 incredible axioms, these reinterpretations of quantum phenomena. Bringing it all together, what does it mean? What kind of picture emerges?
Well, having gone through each of Skylar Fiction's profound axioms, it's really clear that this is not a theory of everything
Right.
in the standard reductive sense that many physicists often seek.
Right. It's not about finding one master equation for all the forces.
Exactly. Though that remains a hugely important scientific quest in its own right. Fiction's project is different.
How so?
Instead, her work unites these diverse phenomena: uncertainty, observation, superposition, entanglement, decoherence, holography, the vacuum, through deeply relational, ethical, and spiritual interpretations.
It's a unification of meaning, maybe.
That's a good way to put it. By combining cutting-edge quantum physics with process philosophy and Christian mysticism, she proposes a truly innovative relational cosmology.
A way of seeing the universe itself as fundamentally relational.
Precisely. In this view, all things are profoundly interconnected, interwoven, and inherently imbued with divine presence. The cosmos is transformed.
From that impersonal machine.
Yes, from an impersonal mechanistic machine into a living, breathing body whose very breath is God.
That's the core image. Breath of the cosmos.
That's the core image. And this relational cosmology isn't just abstract philosophy. It has truly profound practical consequences for your life, offering a new framework for living in the world.
Okay, let's unpack those consequences. What are the key takeaways?
Well, first, there's an undeniable ethics of interdependence. If entanglement and holography are indeed powerful metaphors for the fundamental nature of reality,
That we really are all connected.
then harming others or any part of creation quite literally harms ourselves, harms the whole system. Justice, then, transforms. It becomes less about simply punishing individuals,
And more about restoring what's broken.
more about restoring damaged relations, about recohering the broken bonds within the community or the ecosystem. It's about seeking systemic well-being, shalom, wholeness.
So environmental stewardship, for example.
It isn't just a good practice or a civic duty in this view. It truly becomes a sacrament. Caring for the earth is understood as caring for God's own living, breathing body. It's a sacred act of participation, not just resource management.
Okay, interdependence. What's next?
Second, it fosters a vital ecological spirituality. Thinking about the vacuum as a womb and superposition as potentiality, this encourages a spirituality of openness, hospitality, and deep respect for all life.
Seeing the cosmos as home.
As a sacred home where all beings have intrinsic value, not just instrumental value for humans, it moves us decisively beyond anthropocentrism, beyond seeing ourselves as the sole center of meaning.
How does this play out in practice?
Practices like Sabbath and celebrating seasonal festivals become profound ways of attuning to these cosmic rhythms, allowing us to consciously rest, reflect, and reconnect with the deeper patterns of existence that sustain us.
Rituals could even incorporate these ideas.
Absolutely. Rituals themselves can incorporate quantum metaphors, perhaps implicitly or explicitly, to foster an even deeper ecological consciousness, connecting us physically, emotionally, and spiritually to the underlying patterns and presence within the universe.
Okay, ethics, spirituality. What else?
Third, it promotes a truly participatory science. The axiom seen observation as creative participation invites scientists and all of us who rely on science to fully recognize our active role in shaping knowledge.
Acknowledging we're not detached observers.
Exactly. It doesn't negate the importance of striving for objectivity, rigor, and evidence, but it situates that quest within a much broader web of relationships, acknowledging that the observer is always already part of the observed system.
So science becomes more communal.
Ideally, yes. Science, in this light, becomes more clearly seen as a communal practice of discerning the cosmos's myriad possibilities together. It could empower greater public engagement, citizen science, making the pursuit of knowledge a more shared, collaborative, and ethically informed endeavor.
Makes sense. And the fourth consequence.
And fourth, this framework provides a powerful foundation for interfaith dialogue. As we've seen, the theory's core metaphors.
Uncertainty as surrender, emptiness as fullness, entanglement as connection.
Precisely. They resonate profoundly across multiple spiritual traditions. Think of Taoism's wu-wei and emptiness, Buddhism's emptiness, shunyata, and inner being, pratityasamutpada, Kabbalah's holography and divine sparks, and indigenous spirituality's deep emphasis on relationality and kinship with all creation.
These aren't just superficial similarities?
Fiction argues they point to deep structural echoes, shared human intuitions about the nature of reality.
So this offers a bridge.
It offers a vital platform for interfaith dialogue and cooperation, emphasizing shared values of humility, compassion, interdependence, and urgent ecological care. It allows conversations to move beyond specific dogmas, to find common ground in understanding our place within a unified, living cosmos.
Now, a theory this ambitious, the sweeping one that dares to weave together quantum physics, Christian mysticism, process philosophy, ecological ethics in such a radical way, it's absolutely bound to face some critiques, isn't it?
Oh, inevitably. And that's often a sign you're pushing boundaries and provoking important thought. It would face critiques from all sides, really.
Let's start with the physicists. What might they push back on?
Well, from the perspective of many physicists, a primary critique, and a valid one to raise, would likely be the risk of conflating precise, technical, mathematical, scientific concepts with looser, metaphorical, spiritual analogies.
The danger of quantum woo.
Exactly. There's a justifiable concern about misusing or oversimplifying quantum phenomena to justify claims that aren't scientifically supported, given how often that unfortunately happens in popular culture. Maintaining intellectual rigor is paramount.
So how does fiction handle that potential pitfall? Does she claim these metaphors are the physics?
No, and this is crucial to understanding her approach. She seems very careful to ground her metaphors in accurate descriptions of the actual experiments and theories, citing reputable sources like the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy and NIST reports.
So the science is described accurately first.
Yes, and she explicitly emphasizes, as we've tried to convey, that these were being used as symbols or metaphors intended to inspire reflection, to offer a new lens for profound spiritual and ethical understanding.
She's not saying consciousness literally collapses wave functions via willpower or prayer directly changes quantum outcomes.
No, she doesn't seem to be making those kinds of direct, causal scientific claims, which often fall into pseudoscience. It's presented more as an interpretative framework, a way of seeing the spiritual resonance within the scientific description, rather than a misrepresentation of the physics itself. It's about finding meaning, not altering equations.
Okay, what about critiques from the theological side?
Well, some more traditional theologians might critique the pantheist or panentheist leaning. The concern, often raised against pantheism particularly, is that asserting God is in all things risks dissolving the essential distinction between the creator and the creation.
Blurring the lines too much.
Blurring the lines too much, potentially leading to a loss of divine transcendence, the idea that God is fundamentally other than and greater than the universe, and perhaps diminishing the unique status of God.
But fiction's theory is more nuanced, you said, panentheist.
Yes, and this is where the nuance of her approach, as presented in the outline, truly shines. The theory seems explicitly more panentheist than strictly pantheist.
Remind us of that distinction again.
God is indeed in all things, and all things are in God. That's the pan-en part, all in. But crucially, God also transcends the totality of all things. God is both immanent within the universe.
Present in every quantum fluctuation, every leaf, every galaxy.
Yes, present in the very fabric of becoming. But God is simultaneously more than the universe itself. The universe doesn't exhaust God's being.
So it doesn't reduce God to the universe?
Exactly. This framework doesn't simply equate God with the cosmos. Instead, it sees the universe as the dynamic, loving, and ever-unfolding expression of God's life and creativity, while still affirming divine transcendence. Often through that epiphatic theology, we discuss the understanding of God as ultimately mysterious and beyond complete definition.
Okay, one more potential critique. The use of non-Western traditions.
Yes, that's a very legitimate concern whenever Western thinkers draw on concepts from other cultural or spiritual contexts, like Taoism or Buddhism. The risk is appropriation, taking ideas out of their original context, simplifying them, or using them without proper understanding or respect.
How does the essay suggest fiction addresses this?
The essay notes that fiction seems aware of this concern and seeks to honor these traditions respectfully. This would involve clearly citing her sources, acknowledging the depth and differences within those traditions, and framing the connections as resonances or invitations to dialogue, rather than claiming ownership or equating fundamentally different systems.
So inviting conversation, not just taking ideas.
Ideally, yes. Seeing these resonances as perhaps pointing towards deeper, shared human intuitions about the relational and mysterious nature of reality, fostering mutual respect and learning rather than appropriation. #outro.
Wow. We have taken a truly remarkable deep dive today, haven't we? Exploring how Skylar Fiction's Breath of the Cosmos invites us to imagine the universe not as static or mechanical, but as God's very breath.
A living, dynamic field of relations, pulsating with meaning, with possibility, and, she argues, with an undeniable sacredness.
This relational cosmology, this way of seeing everything, offers some profound invitations for each of us, doesn't it?
It really does. Key invitations. To embrace mystery and humility when facing the unknown, the uncertain.
To recognize our own active participation and creativity in how reality unfolds.
To honor the multiplicity and the boundless potential within ourselves and definitely within others.
To live in that profound sense of interdependence and compassion with all beings.
A thrive for a return to unity, for recoherence, where we perceive separation and fragmentation.
To see divine immanence, God's presence and reflection literally everywhere, in every part.
And finally, to understand emptiness not as a void, but as that fertile generative womb from which all life constantly emerges.
You know, in an age grappling with such urgent ecological crisis, so much pervasive social fragmentation, and for many, a deep spiritual searching, this kind of pantheist or panentheist theory of everything offers a really compelling and deeply hopeful vision, I think.
It truly affirms that science and spirituality need not be enemies locked in perpetual conflict.
They can dance together.
They can dance together in wonder, each revealing different facets of a deeper, more meaningful reality than either could fully grasp alone. The cosmos, in this view, is not some cold, indifferent emptiness,
but a vibrant, interconnected tapestry.
a vibrant tapestry of relations pulsating with God's breath and actively inviting our participation, our attention, our care.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, right now?
Well, the ultimate task, fiction seems to suggest, is simply to breathe with it.
Breathe with the cosmos.
Yes. To practice surrender to the unknown, to observe the world with loving attention, to imagine new possibilities for healing and wholeness, to connect deeply with all life, to actively seek healing and recoherence where there is fragmentation.
To reflect the divine spark in your own unique way.
And to consciously make space in your life, in your community, for new life and unexpected wonders to emerge from that fertile emptiness.
So perhaps a final thought to leave everyone with.
We invite you to consider this. What small, intentional act of a coherence, of mending a relationship, of paying loving attention, of creating space, of choosing hope over cynicism, what small act can you bring into your day-to-day?
How can you let the breath of the cosmos flow through you right now and maybe bring forth some new life, however small?